Hi, Coach. Just talk about Donovan, being first team All ACC and then consensus All American. It must have been a joy working with that kid.
Say that again.
No, I just said, could you comment on Donovan being All ACC first team and consensus All American? And was it a lot of fun working with that kid?
Oh yeah, that may be my first. I coached for a long time. Let's see, 9 years in college football prior to this, and I don't think I've ever seen a first team consensus All American and all that. I'm trying to think back at my. I guess I'd have at Texas A&M. We had some really good players. Um, at Pitt, we were not very good. And SMU, we were just bringing the program back from the death penalty. So um, I don't remember as a GA which one of the players at Texas A&M were super good, but I'm sure there were a bunch. But working with him every day, hand in hand, that was a lot of fun. You know, to see his the smile on his face and the way that he worked. It was no doubt that he's one of the betters I've been around. Um, and to watch it bloom and blossom the way that it did was really cool. When I first got hired in February, he was the first guy that came up and sat in my office and asked me about the package. What do you run? You're a 3-4 guy, a 4-3 guy. I've heard a lot about you. Tell me how you plan on using me and your package, and where do you see me? And I shared with him that I had been around Kevin Green and Greg Lloyd and Joey Porter and Jason Gilden and a lot of really good players with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I've also coached on different teams with Alden Smith and Ahmad Bradshaw, and I've coached with Jonathan Abraham, and I've been with Julius Peppers. I've been with some really good defensive end slash outside linebacker types: Michael Strahan, Osi Umenyiora, Matthias Kiwanuka. Some really good players over the years, and so I'm not saying that he's them, but I am saying that I've had experience with those kind of guys, and he bit hook, line, and sinker into what I was selling day one, and it was really an easy transition to get him to transition between outside linebacker, which he had never done. He hadn't played outside backer. He had never dropped into coverage and all that stuff uh, with the frequency that he did with me, and then play defensive end in sub packages in their nickel package. And it was a very natural fit for him, and he really enjoyed doing it. He had to learn a lot, but he showcased that he could play inside backer, outside backer, defensive end, rush end, drop end, and that was a treat to see.
Coach, we'll take the next question from Sarah Gokarn from the Heights.
Hey Tim, going up against Dylan Raiola, what stands out on the tape from him, and what makes him different maybe from some of the other quarterbacks you've played this year?
We've played some really talented quarterbacks this year. I don't know that he's overly different, but I do think that he's very talented. We've played guys that can throw it. We've played guys that can run it. We played small guys. We played big guys. He's somewhere in between. He's not enormous, but he is a bigger guy. Um, he can throw it. He can touch pass it. He can drop it. Drop the bombs on you. He can drill it. He's accurate. He's mobile enough. He's not. We played against some kids that could really run this year. The kid from SMU, kid from Michigan State, Western Kentucky. We played against some guys like in Virginia that could pull it down and run. And he's not necessarily like that, but he's not the slowest cat either. He can pull it down and move, and he buys time with his feet. He is accurate. He's a big kid that can throw it, and he's a leader. He's very talented. A lot like a lot of the kids that we played this year.
We'll take the next one from Trevor Haas from Boston College.
We've had a lot of young players step in this year, freshmen and sophomores who hadn't played much before this season. Just what's that process like when someone gets injured or someone earns a spot in the depth chart and comes in? How do you guys make sure they're ready? And just what's it like seeing them, excel? I imagine it brings you a lot of pride when they do.
Yeah, I don't know that you're ever comfortable with knowing that they're ready. I think um, I remember when I got to be a coordinator for the first time in the NFL. Coach Cowher brought me in and he said, "Are you ready to do this?" And I said, "Oh yeah," because that's what all young guys with a lot of energy. Hey, hell yeah, I'm ready to go, coach. And he looked at me and said, "You're not ready, but I'll help you." And that's exactly how I think about these young guys that step in here. We have had a lot of guys play this year. We have had a lot of young guys play this year, and they're not ready, but I can help them. And that's what I try to get them to understand, that you're not ready. There's no way you're going to go out in the field. Ashton McShane, for example, he's going to play against start in a night game against the kid from Louisville. I can't remember his name, but that guy's going to be a first round pick probably. And here we are. We got a 17-year-old freshman out there trying to cover a first round pick. He's not ready, but he had to do it, and I could help him. So that's how it's going to be, and that's how it's really always. It's as far as I'm concerned, it's always been that way. Coach Cowher taught me a great deal, working with him with the Steelers for a long time. It's kind of that next man up mentality, and we don't really look at their age, we don't really look at their experience and all that. When it's their turn to play, and they're forced into duty, we'll put them in there. We'll give them an opportunity. They've earned it, and we'll help them.
Next question goes to Dan Rubin from BCEagles.com.
Coach, kind of along those lines, as personnel has had to change, how has the defense needed to adapt, and how have you been able to stick to kind of your core tenets when your personnel has had to evolve just had to evolve?
That's a great question and a great answer to it. It's had to evolve. That's a great question and answer. That's why he hired me as the coordinator, because I can recognize that certain people need help. Certain matchups are not very good for us, and I've had enough experience to kind of get us into something that we can win with, and that's really the answer to your question. Is that yeah, things change. We got to figure out how to fix it and get it fixed in a hurry, and still be able to win with it. And that's why he hired me. I try to bring the staff up to speed with how it is that we're going to change it, how it is that we have to adjust it. We've got a young guy here. Maybe we have a small guy here. Maybe we have a guy that's not quite as fast. You always are tinkering and trying to figure out, how to play checkers with them as opposed to, or chess with them. If they're playing, if they think that you're only capable of playing checkers, you're in trouble. And we've got to be able to match what it is that they do with whatever the personnel or people or scheme that we've designed. We've got to make sure that we put our kids in position to win, and that's the name of the game. It's always evolving.
Coach, we'll take the next one from Caitlin Urka from ESPN.
Hi, Coach.
Hi.
What part of the defense are you looking at and saying that we've improved the absolute most this season, and I'm really proud about that? And then specifically targeting a player on defense who's maybe improved the most or stood out for you over the season.
Jeez. I don't know. That's really good. That's a good question. I hate to single guys out because there's so many that have stepped up and played, and there are a bunch of guys. Our defensive line, for example. We lost our really good player, Cam Horsley, our big defensive tackle. He was out for a couple of weeks, and some guys that hadn't played a lot stepped up and played. We had a guy on our team that when I got here in February was on the sideline, injured reserve, really, for practice purposes. Tyus Clemens. Tyus was not even figuring into my plans as we started the season. He's the kid that intercepted the ball for a touchdown there at the end of the year, probably getting 20 to 30 reps a game as the season evolved. Our defensive line, let's see, outside linebackers, Q Hutchins. Q Hutchins when I got hired in February, he was a special teams guy. When I went through the roster with the coaches that were here previously, they said, yeah, Q Hutchins, really good athlete, special teams guy. The Q, by midseason, ended up being a starter at outside linebacker opposite of Donovan, and ended up getting maybe 3 sacks, I think, during the course of the year. and he's going to be one of our really talented players, going into his senior year. So he's really come a long way from when I got here. Our starter at safety, Carter Davis, he was a corner when I got hired here in February and played corner all through the spring practices and the summer practices and training camp. It wasn't until 7 days before we played against Florida State that he even tried safety, much less started in the game at safety, and has come a long way. Omar Thornton was a freshman, true freshman, and ended up getting a starting job as a safety. Now he's in the rotation. We rotate 3 safeties through every series. True freshman, fantastic job. Same thing with Amari Jackson gets hurt against Virginia, and we started Ashton McShane, a young 17-year-old corner, from Dallas, Texas. So I think a lot of guys really stood up and stood out. For example, our starting middle linebacker in this game, his name is Joe Marinero. At the beginning of the season, Joe was a walk-on that got awarded a scholarship in a team meeting, maybe a couple of weeks into the season because of his performance on special teams. He's our starting middle linebacker. So a lot of guys really stood up and stand out in my mind about the way that they've improved and the way that they've approached their business, the way that they approach the work, the way that they approach practice and football. There are a lot of guys that stand out to me, Caitlin, and it's a good question. Defensively, which group? I don't know that necessarily any group is outperforming another. They've all had players in their areas that have risen up to answer the call. Joe Marinero probably stands out the most because he, like I said, he was a walk-on guy that he's real small. He's just a nice guy. Everybody loves him. He's been here for a long time. He was the third linebacker, the third middle linebacker, my third green dot. We started with Cam Arnold. He hurt his shoulder against Virginia. And then we went to Owen McGowan. Then he tore a pec against maybe, who was it, North Carolina? I can't remember. Syracuse. And then we said, okay, Joe, I don't know if Joe's going to be able to do it. Well, he went in and played against SMU and did a really nice job, and kept the job against North Carolina, then Pitt. So he ended up starting 3 games, and he's done a fantastic job. So it's a great story. It's a Rudy story, if ever there was one.
Do we have any other questions for Coordinator Lewis?
Okay.
Going once, going twice. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Thank you to everyone at Boston College as well for joining us today. We're going to have Nebraska, their coordinators, and quarterback Dylan Raiola and defensive lineman Ty Robinson. At about 1:15, it'll be a little bit later than 1, but we will get them started as soon as they are available. Brendan,